The life and career of André Rieu cannot be understood only through his concerts, sold-out arenas, or the elegant waltzes that have become his signature. His journey is a story shaped by personal determination, emotional restraint, artistic conviction, and resilience. From a childhood that valued discipline over warmth to the global stages where audiences dance, laugh, and sometimes cry together, Rieu built a musical world that invites joy rather than intimidation. His work challenged traditional barriers surrounding classical music, proving that elegance and accessibility can coexist. Yet behind the sweeping melodies and bright lights, he experienced exhaustion, health challenges, and moments of deep personal reflection. His story is ultimately not just about fame, but about healing, identity, and the enduring power of music to restore the human spirit. Early life and emotional environment. André Rieu was born on October 1st, 1949, in Maastricht, into a household shaped by classical music and rigorous expectations. His father, a conductor, believed deeply in precision, discipline, and order, values that shaped the environment in which André and his siblings were raised. The home was structured, quiet, and focused on performance and responsibility rather than emotional expression. While this upbringing offered musical exposure and technical grounding, it provided little space for softness or affection. André learned early to understand music intellectually, yet longed to connect with it emotionally. The absence of warmth in his early life would later influence his artistic vision, fueling his desire to create performances that felt joyful and welcoming rather than rigid or formal. His childhood shaped both his inner strength and the emotional hunger that music would eventually fill. Discovering the violin and the meaning of emotion. André's first violin teacher introduced him to music in a way that was entirely different from his home environment. She encouraged expression, patience, and emotional engagement, demonstrating that music could communicate feelings rather than simply execute technique. For the first time, André felt seen and understood through sound. This relationship changed his connection to his instrument. The violin became more than a skill. It became a refuge. He practiced not to meet expectations, but because it allowed him to express emotions he never had words for. As he grew older, he found himself drawn to waltzes, pieces full of movement, warmth, and celebration. This preference contrasted with his father's belief in formal classical repertoire. Though disagreements emerged, André's commitment to music that inspired joy remained unwavering. It marked the beginning of a lifelong mission to make music feel alive. Partnership and personal independence. In the late 1960s, André met Marjorie, who became a central figure in both his personal life and musical journey. She brought understanding, balance, and encouragement, offering the emotional support he had long needed. Their relationship grew through mutual respect and shared values rather than pressure or control. When André chose to build a life independently from his childhood environment, Marjorie supported him wholeheartedly. Together, they built a home rooted in care, creativity, and open expression, everything his upbringing had lacked. Marjorie later played a key role in the administrative and strategic side of André's musical career, helping to coordinate plans, manage projects, and stabilize finances during difficult times. Their partnership complemented his artistic vision with her practical strength. This foundation of companionship and trust helped him pursue a musical path that was unconventional but deeply meaningful. Early musical career and the search for connection. Before forming his own orchestra, André played in professional ensembles and observed how classical music was often presented to audiences, serious, formal, and emotionally distant. Although the musicians were skilled, the atmosphere felt detached from the joy music could offer. André wanted performances that inspired warmth, connection, and shared experience. He envisioned music as something communal, not confined to silent halls. This realization motivated him to pursue his own artistic direction. He began performing in small venues, bringing classical music to community spaces rather than waiting for audiences to come to formal theaters. These early years were financially challenging, but they allowed him the freedom to develop a performance style focused on emotional openness rather than prestige. His purpose became clear. Music should invite people in, not push them away. This conviction would shape the rest of his career. Creating the Maastricht Salon Orchestra. In 1978, André founded the Maastricht Salon Orchestra, a small ensemble that performed light classical music, waltzes, and melodies intended to make audiences feel uplifted. Though the group had limited resources and performed in modest locations, the performances were filled with warmth and energy. Audiences responded with smiles, applause, and genuine emotion. These reactions reinforced André's belief that music should be accessible and joyful rather than reserved for elite settings. Marjorie played a crucial role, handling practical tasks such as scheduling, communication, and finances. The financial reality was often strenuous, but hope and purpose sustained them. During this time, André discovered the power of waltzes to create a shared emotional experience between musicians and listeners. What began as a small experiment would eventually lead to a movement that reshaped the presence of classical music in modern entertainment, founding the Johann Strauss Orchestra. In 1987, André took a bold step and founded the Johann Strauss Orchestra, built around the idea that classical music could be both elegant and joyful. The first concert in 1988 featured relaxed energy, color, humor, and audience connection, breaking from rigid classical expectations. Some traditional critics resisted the new approach, preferring the formality of standard performance practices. However, audiences responded with enthusiasm and delight. People danced, smiled, and allowed themselves to feel. The orchestra grew gradually, adding musicians and developing elaborate theatrical concert experiences. The focus remained on emotional resonance and community connection, rather than technical perfection alone. This innovative approach allowed classical music to reach individuals who had never felt welcome in traditional concert halls. André's belief in the importance of joy transformed both his career and the lives of the people who attended his performances. International breakthrough and cultural impact. The orchestra's global breakthrough came in 1995 when André performed during a major international sports event in Vienna. A waltz played to thousands of spectators and millions watching at home became a cultural turning point. The moment demonstrated that classical music could move audiences across backgrounds and borders. André's recordings soon reached the top of international music charts, and his concerts began filling stadiums typically reserved for pop and rock performers. His performances became known for their immersive atmosphere, featuring storytelling, interaction, and visual celebration. Some critics debated whether this style blurred the line between classical and popular entertainment, yet the emotional connection was undeniable. Audiences embraced the experience with joy and sincerity. André's work opened doors for new listeners and broadened the reach of orchestral music around the world, proving that beauty and emotional resonance can unite diverse audiences. Exhaustion, health challenges, and reflection. Years of constant touring, emotional investment, and demanding performance schedules eventually took a toll. During a tour in Mexico City, André experienced a sudden health issue that required immediate care and rest. The moment brought unexpected silence to a life built around music and movement. For a performer whose identity was deeply intertwined with sound, joy, and connection, the pause was difficult but necessary. This period encouraged reflection, recovery, and a reevaluation of priorities. André began focusing more on well-being, balance, and sustainable performance pace, supported by his family and orchestra. The experience reminded both him and his audience that artistry is not separate from the human condition. It depends on care and renewal. The pause did not diminish his passion. Instead, it grounded it. When he returned to the stage, his music carried deeper stillness and appreciation, continuing his legacy with purpose and heart. Today, André Rieu continues to perform around the world, bringing audiences together through music that celebrates emotion, connection, and shared joy. His concerts feel like celebrations of life itself, filled with storytelling, warmth, humor, and elegance. The musicians in his orchestra perform not only with skill, but with genuine connection to one another, and the audience, André's legacy, is defined not by record counts or awards, but by the way his music makes people feel. Welcomed, uplifted, understood, and included. His journey demonstrates that art can be both refined and accessible, and that emotional sincerity is as valuable as technical precision. Through decades of work, he has helped reshape the cultural space of classical music, reminding the world that beauty can be communal and that music, at its best, is an act of shared humanity. The Maestro of Joy. The Extraordinary Journey of André Rieu. André Rieu's life reads like a symphony, filled with crescendos of triumph, notes of sorrow, and an unwavering rhythm of resilience. From humble beginnings to creating one of the world's most successful orchestras, Rieu turned classical music into a celebration of life itself. His concerts, rich with laughter and emotion, redefined how people experienced waltzes. But behind the grandeur and the glittering stages stood a man who battled illness, heartbreak, and the quiet fear of losing what he loved most, the music. His story isn't just about fame, it's about endurance, love, and the unbreakable spirit of an artist who believed that joy was the greatest gift he could give to the world, the vision behind the waltz revolution. André Rieu's approach to classical music was not simply about performance, but about transformation. He believed music was meant to be shared, celebrated, and felt deeply, not locked behind formality or hierarchy. While many orchestras emphasized strict technique and solemn presentation, Rieu chose emotion as his guiding principle. He saw the waltz not as an outdated relic, but as a living expression of joy and connection. His concerts brought together people of all ages and backgrounds who may never have considered classical music accessible or inviting. Instead of quiet audiences and rigid etiquette, he encouraged smiles, dancing, and spontaneous applause. The stage became a place where elegance met warmth, where beauty did not need to be intimidating. Audiences around the world responded because they recognized sincerity in his performances. Rieu didn't just play music, he created shared experiences. He reminded people that art is most meaningful when it brings people closer together. His success came not from changing the music itself, but from changing how it was shared. His waltz revolution made classical music not only heard, but felt, turning what was once exclusive into something joyfully universal. The Palace on Wheels, a dream, turned reality. To express the magic he believed music could create, André Rieu imagined concerts that felt like stepping into another world. This vision led to one of his most ambitious undertakings, constructing a full-scale traveling replica of Vienna's Schönbrunn Palace to serve as a concert stage. Costing approximately 34 million euros, the stage was more than a production choice. It was a statement. Complete with grand staircases, glittering chandeliers, fountains, and period-inspired costumes, the stage turned each performance into a theatrical event. Critics questioned the extravagance, suggesting it leaned too far into spectacle. But audiences saw something different, a chance to experience classical music with wonder instead of formality. For many, these concerts were their introduction to orchestral performance. The atmosphere was welcoming, uplifting, and breathtaking all at once. The music felt larger than life, yet personal enough to touch individual hearts. Through this touring palace, Rieu demonstrated that classical music could be immersive, emotional, and joyful without sacrificing artistic respect. The goal was not excess, it was enchantment. And for countless attendees, the memory of those nights remains unforgettable. The illness that stopped the music. In 2010, the man who had spent decades dancing with his violin was suddenly forced to stand still. André Rieu fell gravely ill when a viral infection attacked his vestibular nerve, destroying his sense of balance. For a violinist, that meant disaster. Even standing became unbearable overnight. Tours were canceled, the orchestra dispersed, and the once tireless performer found himself confined to bed, dizzy and disoriented. For months, he lay in silence, watching the empire he had built teeter on the edge of collapse. Yet amid despair came hope. A letter from an Australian fan who had suffered the same condition offered him a set of exercises to retrain his inner ear. With determination, Rieu practiced daily until, slowly, his balance returned. When he finally returned to the stage, he wasn't just playing music, he was celebrating survival. But the illness left scars, reminding him of his own fragility every time he lifted the bow. The weight of loss and the music of grief. Rieu's recovery was soon tested again. In 2016, tragedy struck when his close friend and longtime trombonist, Ruud Merckx, died suddenly during their Christmas tour. The loss devastated Rieu. He canceled the remaining shows in London, Birmingham, and Glasgow, an unprecedented move for a man who rarely missed a performance. For him, this wasn't just the loss of a colleague, but of a brother. The orchestra, which had always felt like a family, fell into a stunned silence. When Rieu eventually returned to performing, something had changed. The joy in his music was now intertwined with sorrow and gratitude. Each note carried a quiet remembrance of those he had lost. His performances grew softer, more reflective, filled with a tenderness that audiences could feel even without words. Through his grief, Rieu rediscovered the emotional depth that made his music resonate so deeply with millions around the world. The collapse in Mexico, a harsh reminder of limits. By 2024, at 74, André Rieu was still performing nearly 100 concerts a year. His passion hadn't dimmed, but his body began to protest. During a demanding 6-concert run in Mexico City, the combination of altitude, exhaustion, and illness overwhelmed him. After his second show, he collapsed backstage, weak and disoriented. It was a breaking point. The remaining tour was canceled, and 40,000 tickets had to be refunded. For a man known for his perfectionism and devotion to his audience, it was a heartbreaking defeat. Rieu returned home shaken and uncertain about his future. His son Pierre, who had long managed the orchestra's business affairs, stepped in with a new plan: fewer flights, longer rest periods, and only European performances. It was a turning point not just for André's health, but for his relationship with his own ambition. For the first time, he had to accept that even maestros need rest. Pierre Rieu, the guardian of his father's legacy. Pierre Rieu's role transformed after his father's collapse. More than just a manager, he became André's protector, ensuring that the empire his father built could continue without sacrificing his well-being. Under Pierre's leadership, the orchestra's operations were restructured. Concerts were scheduled with longer recovery times, medical staff accompanied tours, and André followed strict health routines: hydration, controlled stage time, and post-show cooldowns. Though slowing down was painful for someone who thrived on constant motion, André trusted his son's judgment. Their bond deepened as Pierre took on not just the business responsibilities, but also the emotional burden of keeping the music alive safely. Through this transition, Rieu learned the beauty of surrender, of allowing others to carry the weight when his own strength faltered. Pierre's quiet dedication ensured that the music would go on, not through relentless ambition, but through care, balance, and love. The softer symphony, aging with grace. Today, at 75, André Rieu continues to perform, but the tempo of his life has changed. His concerts are no longer grand spectacles of endless energy. They are more intimate and heartfelt. Each waltz carries layers of memory, of triumphs, losses, recoveries, and gratitude. The audience still cheers, but the man on stage now moves with a reflective calm. Behind him, Pierre stands watchful, ensuring every detail runs smoothly. At home in Maastricht, Rieu shares quiet days with his wife Marjorie, the composer and arranger who has been the silent architect of his success. Together, they manage their vast empire of over 80 properties and philanthropic projects, supporting music education, donating instruments to underprivileged children, and aiding cultural restorations. Though the applause still echoes, Rieu has grown comfortable with the idea that silence will someday take its place. For now, every concert is a farewell gift to the world that loved him, the legacy that lives beyond the stage. André Rieu's journey is not defined by the records he sold or the palaces he filled, but by the hearts he touched. His belief that music should bring joy transformed classical concerts into living celebrations that united people from all walks of life. Even after illness, tragedy, and the passage of time, he continues to play with the same warmth that first drew fans to him decades ago. His story reminds us that greatness isn't measured by perfection, but by perseverance, the courage to stand again when the music almost stops. As Rieu performs softer now, his legacy plays louder than ever. He has shown the world that beauty, laughter, and love can coexist in one melody, and that the waltz, like life itself, is most powerful when danced with the heart. Conclusion. The story of André Rieu is not simply about the rise of a world-renowned musician. It is a story of transformation, of a child raised in an emotionally reserved environment who grew into an artist dedicated to creating warmth and connection. His early experiences shaped his understanding of what was missing in classical performance: joy, laughter, and a sense of belonging. Rather than accept the traditional expectations of the classical world, he reimagined what orchestral music could be. His work was not just about challenging convention, it was about expanding access to beauty and emotional expression. Central to his journey has been the support of his partner, Marjorie, whose presence provided stability, encouragement, and balance. Their shared dedication allowed André to pursue a path that many doubted, but that resonated deeply with audiences around the world. The success of the Johann Strauss Orchestra stands as proof that music speaks most powerfully when it reaches people's hearts, rather than simply impressing their minds. André's health challenges and moments of exhaustion remind us that even the brightest performers are human, with limits and vulnerabilities, yet these experiences added depth to his perspective rather than diminishing his spirit. When he returned to the stage, he carried with him greater appreciation for rest, connection, and the meaning of music in his life.